Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of the Stellium Astrology podcast. I'm Stephanie James, your host. I am the founder of StelliumAstrology.com. I am the former horoscope columnist for Elle Magazine UK, and I'm also a tutor at the London School of Astrology. And I am currently in my car podcasting again. I actually plugged my microphone in the other day to my computer to actually start recording something, and the microphone wasn't working, so I've had to order a new lead to see if it's the lead, process of elimination, and hopefully it is just the lead, otherwise I'm going to have to buy a new podcasting mic, but I'm not really using it at the moment, so it's not like a major stress. But yeah, the little one's asleep in the back of the car. I'm sitting in a relatively busy spot, so I do apologise if the noises around me get a little bit distracting. But today I decided to discuss something. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm all for women empowering women. I really do believe in bigging up and supporting all of the women in your life, and even the women that aren't in your life, and just cheerleading. However, I have a Scorpio moon, and I am prone to bouts of jealousy. It's not an attractive quality. I don't like it. And it's not like a super, like, I don't get, it's a weird thing, because it's not like something that happens a lot, and I don't get jealous over perhaps what you would imagine I would get jealous over, but actually my jealousy is ridiculous. Okay, so my latest jealousy thing is I'm jealous of Liliy Allen because she's married to David Harbour. David Harbour plays Hopper in Stranger Things, and I'm watching Stranger Things, and since the first series I've always been like, that guy is hot. He's kind of, I've got Mars in Aquarius, and I've got quite a unique taste. I've got all of my personal planets, including Mars and Venus, so my two of my relationship indicators are sitting in Aquarius, which means I'm going to appreciate quirky, I'm going to appreciate not your typical run-of-the-mill kind of looks, maybe. I don't know, sometimes I do. Anyway, yeah, so I find David Harbour attractive. I don't think that is too weird, to be honest with you. I think he's actually a really sexy guy. Anyway, so I was Googling him while watching Stranger Things, as you do, and I was like, oh my God, he's married to Liliy Allen. When did that happen? So anyone, I mean, maybe people know who she is, but as far as I kind of, on my radar, Liliy Allen was around in kind of, I think, sort of the early noughties. She had a pop career, and then she sort of spanned off into doing a few TV programmes. I know she's come from a bit of a famous family, so I kind of just assumed that was where her career peaked, and then it kind of all sort of fizzled, and that was that, basically. However, yeah, apparently she's continued to do things. She set up a record company and all sorts of things, and she's very much mingling in celebrity circles still, and her and David Harbour are an item. So I felt some jealousy. It is silly, isn't it? But that's just where I get it. I'm like, you know, like, honestly, I'll be honest with you, I was like, why does he want to be with her? And I honestly asked myself that question, and then I had to look at some pictures of her, and I thought, well, actually, she's really pretty, and she's got a very cute nose, and, you know, she does herself up. Even without makeup, she looks lovely, like really gorgeous. So I thought, well, you know, she's very attractive. And, yeah, so I basically went on a bit of a stalker fest. And I thought, why not turn that negative experience, that rather darker side of myself that I don't like very much, into a positive thing and make a podcast episode out of it, and be honest with you guys at the same time, because I'm only human. And, you know, we all have these thoughts that we can all pretend to be squeaky clean, and we can all pretend that these things don't cross our mind. But actually, you know what? You know, I am a human being. I am not perfect. And I've experienced a range of emotions, extreme emotions, because I have a Scorpio moon and we don't really do things by halves. And one of those things is that I do get jealous sometimes. And my jealousy is not something I enjoy. I don't like it. In fact, it's almost like an inferiority complex, because it's like, well, why can't I have that kind of question? So it's an interesting way for me to reflect upon that, and at the same time do a little bit of celebrity stalking, which I'm not really one for a celebrity culture, but this one sucked me in. So I'm also going a bit rogue today because Liliy Allen and David Harbour don't have birth charts on astro.com, so I went to Astro Theme instead, which I'm sure you're all very familiar with. Whenever you type in birth chart, look at so-and-so's birth chart, usually Astro Theme is one of the top ones that comes up. I do love the way the chart looks. I think it's very attractive. So yeah, I went on to Astro Theme, where I found that Liliy Allen is born on the 2nd of May 1985. She was born in Hammersmith. No birth time for her, but I've cast a noon chart. And interestingly, I was thinking, what would I give her ascendant? What would I say her ascendant is? And I happen to think that her ascendant, I just think she's probably got a Leo ascendant. I might be wrong. She's also got really amazing bone structure. She's very, I don't know, she's got a very sort of Saturnian Capricorn sort of look about her. She's also a mum, it could be anything really. She could be Cancer rising because she's very, I don't know, it's known about her motherhood, and she's been public about battles with eating disorders and things, and all sorts of things, and she comes from a family of famous people, so it could be Capricorn or Cancer rising, but I felt like Leo rising. And anyway, when I cast the noon chart, Leo was rising, 14 Leo actually, 14 and a half Leo, so I thought, well, that's interesting. And I also cast a heart for David Harbour, and his birthday is the 10th of April 1975 he was born in apparently New York, according to Astro Theme. I haven't checked this for accuracy. This is just a bit of fun. It's something that I thought would be really useful for us to look at, because even if you don't have a birth time, you can still look at the chart, and you can get a feel for what you're watching, who you're watching, that kind of thing. So yeah, I've cast a noon chart for him, which places his ascendant at 25 Scorpio. Now, isn't that funny? I was actually looking at him thinking, I think maybe I might put him as a bit of a Scorpio ascendant. I don't know. Maybe not. Usually when you see someone with a Scorpio ascendant, usually they've got quite a lot of facial hair and stuff, like they're hiding, Not always, just sometimes. Anyway, there's all sorts of things. It could be anything, and that's the thing, really. But yeah, I thought I'd look at what is interesting. So initially, let me have a look at my screenshot that I've got. There was a couple of articles that were really useful, and I'll link them below, but one of them was Elle magazine, good old Elle, who I used to write horoscopes for, have got an article called Liliy Allen and David Harbour's Relationship Timeline, from red carpet appearances to married life. I also looked, there was another article on Harper's Bazaar, which I'll also link. Now, where is that, is the question. Anyway, so I had a look at their charts together, and what I thought was, first and foremost, let's go in for the thing that I think was probably the biggest player in their relationship. It's important. They both have Mercury in Aries, and actually David's Mercury is at 11:30 and Lily's is at 15:15. So their Mercury is quite tight, it's not the tightest, but it's very close together in conjunction. So they have a Mercury conjunction. Now, what have I told you guys about how important Mercury is in Synastry? It's like they're on the same page. They just get each other, and that's really nice in Synastry. Now, David is an Aries. He's got his sun at 20 degrees of Aries. His Chiron's not too far away, 23 degrees, nearly 24. And like I said, he's got Mercury in Aries. He's also got Jupiter in Aries at 5 degrees. And his moon is at 8 degrees and 40. If we're going by the noon chart, it could be earlier Aries or later Aries. You can't tell unless you've got the time with the moon, because it moves so fast. Same with the ascendant and midheaven. Those points move so quickly that, it's like the birth time has to be accurate for us to give a proper reading. So I would not want to give any kind of proper reading to somebody who I didn't have a birth time for, I'd do it differently. I can do it, but I would read the chart in a different way. And I wouldn't rely on things like moon placements, which is, as you guys know, really important. And I wouldn't rely on the ascendant or midheaven either. Again, key points in the chart. Now, what else have I highlighted? So yes, David's got a stellium in Aries. So he's got Jupiter, potentially the moon. I don't know whether it dips out of Aries at all and back into Pisces, but I don't think so. And he's also got Mercury, Sun and Chiron. So he's got quite a lot going on. And by this noon chart, he's also got 4 Aries on the midheaven. Now, I think it's interesting that somebody who played a character called Hellboy has, got all of that fire in their chart. I think that's quite interesting. Now, he's also got Venus at 26 degrees of Taurus. And he has his nodes between 3 degrees and 19 minutes of Gemini and Sagittarius. So the nodes were recently, over the past couple of years, the nodes have been in Gemini and Sagittarius, haven't they? So there's been, he's had either, I can't remember if it's a nodal return or a nodal opposition. I think he's had the North Node. I can't remember where the North Node is at the moment. It is, let me see. Yeah, the North Node was in Gemini, I believe. Yeah. So he had a nodal opposition. He will have had a nodal opposition. He's also got Saturn at 12 Cancer, and then Pluto at 7. Oh God, Libra, brain. Uranus at 0 Scorpio. And as soon as I saw his Uranus at 0 Scorpio, I was like, I bet he's born in 1975, because my ex had that placement too, and he was. And yes, also he's got North Node in Sag at 3 and Neptune at 11 Sagittarius. So sorry to just go through that and be like, oh, did I miss out Mars? He's got Mars at 29 Aquarius. So there you go, there's a bit of the quirk factor. He's got the quirk factor in his chart. And interestingly, he has got all of those planets in Aries. So Mars is considered to be what we call a dispositor. It's like the ruler of all of those planets in those signs. And Mars will actually also be ruling, dispositing Uranus as well, because he's got Uranus in Scorpio, which is traditionally ruled by Mars. But that's also, it's like kind of like it's got a dual passport, Uranus does. It's got Pluto ruling it and also Mars. So dual nationality. So it gives his Aries stuff a little bit of an Aquarius flavour about it as well, because Mars is kind of like the manager. He's kind of managing all those planets, but he's doing it from 29 Aquarius. So he's got this kind of a sense of doing things his own way and not really caring about what other people think, and doing what he thinks is right based on his own set of kind of ideals, basically. Aquarius is kind of like the activist, having quite strong feelings or ideas around how things can be done better to improve the world that we live in. It's a very saying quirky and unique is almost a little bit buzzwordy for it, but that's exactly what it is, because it's about resonating with your true cause as opposed to trying to fit into everybody else's, and not being ashamed to be who you are. It's interesting that for me, I kind of know him. I know he's been in other stuff, but for me, he rose to my kind of radar. I only sort of really knew who he was from doing Stranger Things. You could say that Stranger Things is kind of quite an Aquarian, Uranian sort of thing, especially what's it called? Elle, the girl that plays Elle, Millie Bobby Brown. I was looking at her chart the other day, and she's a Sun Pisces conjunct Uranus. I think she's got Uranus in Aquarius and Sun in Pisces. So Uranus is really late degrees. So his Mars will be on her Uranus placement, and her Sun is just out of sign there in Pisces. And just to add, by the way, to that, so her Sun will be trine his Uranus. This is Millie Bobby Brown I'm talking about. But also, he plays her father, the kind of adoptive father of her, in Stranger Things, in later seasons. He kind of like adopts her, takes her on, and really becomes a father figure to her. And she's, she's kind of like that rejected, almost like a science experiment child who doesn't really have a real understanding of reality. She's very much a kind of outsider, you might want to say like a bit of a freak or a unique type, as depicted in the show. And so her Uranus and his Mars together, it's like he rises to another level of experience of being a man, that new experience of masculinity through fatherhood. So you wouldn't look at Mars necessarily and think about fatherhood, but you could say that actually Mars is, about the masculine archetype, and maybe she awoke a new masculine archetype within him, definitely through the character, and it'll be interesting what comes up later on through this. So bear that in mind. So now let's look at Liliy Allen. She's got Sun at 11 Taurus, North Node and South Node at, so North Node at 18 Taurus and South Node at 18 Scorpio, and her South Node is in conjunction with Saturn at 25 Scorpio as well, so that's interesting. And she's got Mars and Chiron quite close together in Gemini, 4 and 6 degrees. She has got Moon at 8 degrees of Libra, Pluto at 3 degrees of Scorpio. I've already said about the South Node and Saturn, 18 and 25. She's got Uranus at 17 Sag, Neptune at 3 Capricorn, Jupiter at 15 Aquarius, and then Venus at 7 Aries, Mercury at 15 Aries, and potentially the midheaven at 27, but not really. So I've gone around the chart and I've highlighted their points. So this is interesting because there's a lot of Aries. They've both got planets in Scorpio. They've both got planets in Libra. They've both got stuff in Aquarius. They've both got stuff in Taurus. So when you look at their charts, it looks like if you overlay the charts, and what I've got is a bi-wheel, by the way. You can select a bi-wheel chart to look on astro.com or on Astro Gold that I'm using on my phone. And you can actually see their charts together, that they kind of highlight each other's planets. It's almost like their planets are on a seesaw almost together. Now, the things that I've highlighted that I think are really interesting, so they've got a Mercury conjunction, which I already said is important. Now, one of the major things that I think is really interesting here is that her moon is at, according to the noon calculated time, which I really feel like, I really feel like that could actually be quite accurate. But anyway, her moon at noon is at 8 degrees and 27 minutes of Libra. His moon is at 8 degrees and 40 minutes of Aries. So that means that their moons are opposing each other. What else I find interesting about that is that it would mean that she's got a moon Venus opposition, because she's got Venus at about 7 Aries, 702 of Aries. He's got Pluto at 7 and 33 minutes of Libra. So his Pluto definitely opposes her Venus. There's no sort of like question about that. There's a definite opposition there. Whereas the moons can move quite, a fair amount, quite a few degrees in the space of a day. So they may not be at 8 degrees or near 8 degrees. However, Pluto is definitely opposite. His Pluto is definitely opposite her Venus, which I just thought was a really, really interesting. I think that kind of describes a type of fascination, and a definite kind of needing to experience that person on a very intimate level. I have to say my partner's Pluto was on my moon, and it was like a kind of need, just a fascination. I have to describe it as a fascination, and I think he felt the same about me. I think there was it was like I can't really describe it, because I know with my partner it wasn't an immediate attraction, it was an immediate fascination. I was intrigued, it was intrigue. I was like, but not like, wow, smoking. It was more of like a kind of, he's interesting, he's quirky. I guess that's how it starts. Definitely if you've got personal planets in Aquarius, there has to be friendship first. So that I found very interesting. What also is interesting is that I know that I didn't talk about Juno placements, but I'm starting to look at Juno a bit. And David Harbour's Juno is at 15 degrees and 15 minutes of Taurus, which is opposite my moon. So obviously I'm fascinated, interested by this guy. He has got that Juno placement, which sits pretty much on top of Liliy Allen's North Node. And then also we've got her Venus placement at 26 Taurus, opposing his Saturn. His Venus is opposing her Saturn. So his Venus is at 2607, her Saturn is at 2548. So that Saturn, remember what I said about Saturn, it's like relationship glue. So he projects, generally men tend to project their the planets with the female feminine archetype. It's usually something that men, I'm not saying this is a cut and dry rule, but like generally you find those who are identify as male tend to not integrate the female indicators, feminine indicators in the chart, and vice versa, that those that identify as female do not integrate or recognise the masculine archetypes as themselves in the chart, and that's where we project. That's where we look for these qualities in outside of ourselves, so that we can understand them from a removed perspective. Now, his Venus is obviously something he projects, and he's attracted a Taurian woman, and it opposes her Saturn, which is an anchor. It's like an anchoring. It's, a Saturn-Venus contact is, and especially in the Saturn in Scorpio opposite, there is a real kind of like big commitment that can be made. And in the fixed signs, you'd expect it to be kind of a long-lasting type of thing. Now, what else am I looking at here? So yes, so he's got all. So he's. Where's her? Let's have a look at this. Let's have a look. Where's her Mars one? All right. So her Mars is in Gemini. So let's have a little look. So the other things that I was looking at. So the Moon opposite Pluto thing. So yeah, again, like I said, there is that fascination. If you've got like Venus opposite Saturn, you've got the Moon opposite Pluto. Her Pluto is on his Uranus. So there's this kind of. It's a generational thing. Lots of people of that generation will have similar things. So like I said with my partner, so Liliy Allen's 1985, I was born in 1983, my partner was 1975, so my Saturn is at 3 degrees, and my Pluto is at 29 Libra. So actually with my partner, our Uranus Saturn contact was tighter. Uranus Pluto contact was tighter. But that's what I mean, it's like a generational thing. So lots of people around the same years will have similar contacts with those outer planets. But if they feed into something else in the chart, if they feed into other planetary placements, they can kind of like super boost them in a way, and give them an added punch. But yeah, it's still interesting when you meet somebody and you've got all this other synastry and then you've got that going on as well. What else have we got here? Venus opposite Saturn, like I said. Is there something going on with his Venus? Where is it? Where's hers? Like I said, with the moon. And oh yes, and we've got also his Saturn. His Saturn is sextile her Sun as well. So you've got Saturn at 12 degrees of Cancer, and that is sextile Lily's Sun as well. So that I think is interesting, because it's like a nice stabilizing. Already Taurus is quite a stable sign, but there's a stabilizing with Saturn. If you've ever met anybody with Saturn in prominent placements, I've met someone with Saturn on my Sun, I've met somebody with Saturn rising on my ascendant. You feel a sense of stability with them. There's also a type of admiration where you kind of see something about them that you, maybe they spark an aspiration in you, maybe they wake you up to ambitions or goals that you had never previously imagined for yourself. I will say with the my ex and the Saturn-Uranus conjunction, there was a great experience of awakening with us, where he woke me up to perhaps my direction, where I want to be, what I want to do in life. Astrology. He bought me a nice little book, an astrology book, after having a conversation with me. And that wasn't it. There was lots of other things with me and my ex. But, you know, Uranus, like I said, can be quite a disturbing factor in the chart. It can unsettle as well. So depending on what happens with those planets and whether they're feeding in a productive way or whether they're in a more destructive way, it can create situations which may promote either the growth of the relationship or the individual growth, where you go off in separate directions. So I've kind of looked at some of the key things that I thought were really interesting. I've also highlighted David's Mars on Lily's potential midheaven, the noon midheaven, and I think it's interesting because his Mars, you know, part of what he does has fed into her kind of notoriety and brought her back. I'm not saying, I mean, I don't know if she ever disappeared. I kind of feel like she did. I know she decided to retire from the spotlight for a while to be a full-time mum to two of her children. She has two daughters. But actually, I think that, you know, a returning to the spotlight can be triggered by actually, you know, his presence in her life. And as you can see, that Mars is sextile her midheaven, so that is a potential opportunity for her. And also, Mars is his Mars is square her Venus, so that might be a kind of in fact, there's a T-square created between his Venus, her Saturn. So it's his Mars square his Venus, and her Saturn forms a T-square, which is probably her kind of I'll explore it in further detail, but actually this is where she has probably awakened him to the fact that he was ready to settle down, in a sense. Like she said, let's get serious. Her presence has created that side of the opposition opposite his Venus, which has allowed him to say, yes, I think I'm ready to get serious and settle down, and kind of perhaps altered his trajectory as far as his career her aspirations are concerned. So enough waffling around that, because there is plenty of waffle here, right? I've done plenty of it. And I've just noticed as well that her sun, she has got a T-square anyway in her chart. Her sun and her Saturn are kind of apexing at Jupiter in Aquarius as well. Whether or not, you know, it's a bit wide, but interesting nonetheless, because she is, you know, she's kind of a bit of an outsider as well when it comes to the public eye and some of these things. Anyway, so she said that they met on a celebrity dating app. Now, why have I never heard of this celebrity dating app? Why have I never been told? I said that to Chris. I said, why don't I know about this celebrity dating app? And he went, because you're not a celebrity. And I was like, yeah, I guess. But I was like, that's kind of mad that there's actually like, you know, if you're a celebrity, you can join a dating app. I'm like, how do you get onto this app? I'm so curious. I want to see it. And I'm even more like interested by the fact that people like David Harbour are using it. Like, he's actually gone on a dating app. I don't know how many people he went on dates with before he met Liliy Allen, but apparently Liliy Allen only ever went on the date with him. And what she said was interesting. She said that she actually met him underneath a clock. He was dressed as Karl Marx. He was filming for something. He was dressed as Karl Marx. And when he met her, he was standing underneath this giant clock, and it made her think about that moment on the Titanic film when Leonardo DiCaprio was standing underneath the clock, I think at the top of the stairs, and in you know, that epic kind of scene where he's standing on the staircase and he sees Kate Winslet at the bottom. So yeah, basically, I thought, well, that's interesting. We can look at, we can actually do something here, and we can actually look at the Titanic. And so I looked at the maiden voyage of the Titanic, just out of curiosity, and there was loads of synastry with their charts, loads of synastry. One of the things I found really interesting was the fact that the maiden voyage of the Titanic had Saturn at 19 Taurus, which happens to sit on top of Liliy Allen's North Node, and around her Sun as well, and around David's Juno, and also quite close to his Venus. So I found that very interesting. I thought that was quite a fascinating thing. And also the Titanic has Sun at 20 degrees of Aries, and so does David Harbour's chart. Just, you know, little things like that sometimes you can just look them up, and it's just quite fascinating. Yeah, so I'm just looking at it now. I didn't make any actual physical notes. I just highlighted stuff which I thought was really interesting, but that was something that really jumped out at me. And I did go off looking at Leonardo DiCaprio's chart as well. So anyway, little man has woken up, so I'm going to have to like hurry the F up. Now, one of the things, so I wanted to point that out just to tell you, and one of the things that he said about Liliy Allen is that she's his role in Stranger Things, becoming a kind of father figure to Elle. Oh dear, he's still not well, bless him. Yeah, becoming a father figure to... Oh, let's go for a drive. So yes, that I thought was really interesting, and also that David Harbour has said that he feels that his role in Stranger Things, where he became a father figure to Millie Bobby Brown, or Elle as she is known in the TV show, really prepared him for you know, becoming a dad to Liliy Allen's children. But yeah, so she's got 2 children, 2 daughters, and he has decided to, I say decided to, when you meet somebody, when you fall for them, their life becomes your life. Sorry, my car just made a noise then. So yeah, so that is a lovely thing for him to say. They actually do talk about future plans for children, or Liliy Allen does, apparently, from the Elle article on October 25th. Liliy Allen discusses future plans for children with David, and she said she's not ready to do it just yet. Now, it's possible that maybe they will when Uranus meets Venus, perhaps, seeing as he's got quite a Uranian... I mean, I don't know his entire chart because we don't know his rising sign or anything, but, you know, the fact that Mars is in Aquarius and that rules his Aries stellium, it could be that Uranus for him highlights that, you know, his, you know, that kind of planet has an awakening potential for him to have children with her. And yeah, so her Uranus is at 17 Sagittarius, and she's got Jupiter in Aquarius as well. So yeah, Uranus may take on a bit of a either Jupiterian or Aquarian flavour for them both. Jupiter is in Aries at the moment, will dip back into Pisces soon, and Saturn is currently in Aquarius, and will be working its way through. So there's a chance that maybe when Saturn gets to his Mars or Uranus gets to her Venus, there could be a baby for those two. It might not be that simple, it might not be that cut and dry, just a thought. But yeah, it's interesting to see that they've talked about children, and it's very publicly discussed, as well as being you know, something that he already feels a sense of responsibility with her children as well. So it says here, right, September the 6th, Liliy Allen and David Harbour are married. They got a marriage license and they got married in Las Vegas. What's it say here? The Smile Singers singer confirmed that she had actually married the Stranger Things star in Las Vegas, right? And yeah, she wore a gorgeous dress, and there's an Elvis Presley impersonator. I always like the idea of a Vegas wedding, just running away and doing it on the down low. Yeah, September the 6th. Now, we did actually cast a chart for their wedding as well, but I did it for the 8th because that's what date I'd originally seen. So let's do the 6th. Go for you. Yeah, so the wedding chart is the sun was in Virgo, earthy Virgo, trine her sun, and the moon was in Taurus, so would have throughout the day moved forward. Moon Uranus, no less. So Uranus was retrograde and moving towards the moon, and the moon was moving forward. And Mars was in 28 Aries at the time. Really interesting charts to look at, guys. So yeah, 6th of September 2020 is when they apparently got married. Yeah, I think, that's when there was that Jupiter, Saturn and Pluto conjunction in Capricorn. Wow. So that moon, so the sun in Virgo was trine her sun and also trine all those planets in Capricorn. Very heavy stuff. And that stuff would be trining her north node and sextiling her south node as well. Very interesting to see that. It's a very, very grounding, very earthy, and also brings, like, it can bring the real world, like the material realm, into, really bring stuff into fruition. So for her, I think that this is a real kind of quite a luxurious kind of transit. I mean, she's not short of cash for herself. I think she's worth about £14 million, or I think it's about $20 million. I didn't look at his net worth. You see, I did a lot of stalking, but it's definitely it's just very interesting. Oh, also the sun that day was sextile his Saturn. So that actually, so it was sextiling her south node, trine her north node, sextile his Saturn. Who knows what time they got married? I cast a birth chart for 12 o'clock, and Saturn, the ascendant at 12 was 22 Cancer, which is opposite Pluto at that time as well. So yeah, there's loads to look at with this as well. There's so much to look at, and I loved casting charts and tripping off into charts. Mercury also in Libra at that time as well, so that means that Mercury would have been making its way towards opposing both of their Mercury placements. It just feels like a nice little, as far as oppositions are concerned, when you've got a chart with lots of planets in signs that are kind of opposite each other, it does create a sense of opposites attract, or balancing in a way. And oppositions always have, even though you can have any planet like in an opposition. So like, for example, they've got that Venus Pluto opposition. With oppositions, there's always like an Aries Libra kind of Mars Venus feel to it, or like a full moon feeling, because of like the sun and the moon when they are opposing each other. It's a full moon. There's a sense of bringing it to light, a sense of like you can have the seesaw. You can have a tug of war with somebody you've got an opposition with, and that Venus Pluto opposition could end up being a bit of a tug of war in a way, but not in a very in a more diplomatic way. So you've got, like, when you go to war, you've got the soldiers that fight, which are more Mars, and then you've got the diplomatic politicians who are doing like the legislations, and like the more chess, it's more like chess orientated, like more thinking rather than acting. And with Pluto involved, there can always be that sense of having to navigate and to figure out your next steps based on an agenda that you don't want to reveal to the opponent. And that sounds horrible, but I guess I could say that that's kind of an element of game playing. But I don't know them personally. I'm removing all feeling, including jealousy. When I look at these charts, I'm just very interested to see how it works. So yeah, this is just a bit of fun. I don't know if I've got anything more to say about this. I probably will end up thinking, oh, I should have said this, I should have said that, which will always be annoying, and it always happens every time I record a podcast. But yeah, I'll share all the links that I mentioned today. I just wanted to turn what I'm doing into something productive rather than just stalking. I'm just looking for that bit where it says about him. It says here, July 29th, 2021, David Harbour says Stranger Things role prepared him for parenting Liliy Allen's kids. 29th of July 2021. Let's have a look, shall we? Let's just quickly edit that. 29 July. Now, we don't know the time that this was said. We don't know the location it was said. So I'm just going to cast it for where I am and just look at a few things that jump out at me. Oh, wow. Amazing. So, yeah, Uranus is on his Juno, which is also on her North Node. Jupiter is at 29 degrees and 53 minutes of Aquarius, and retrograde, which is on his Mars. So what did you remember at the beginning of the episode? I was saying about how, that role in Stranger Things helped him to develop his masculine archetype, that Mars, into a new expression of masculinity. Well, actually, this is interesting because Jupiter is on Mars in his chart at the time of making the statement. Now, it doesn't matter what time or date or place, wherever you are in the world, on that date, when he said it, Jupiter is a relatively slow-moving planet, so it would definitely have been at 29 degrees there. It wouldn't have moved any further. And the same with Uranus. Uranus would be there too. So when I said a Jupiterian and Uranian flavour, I truly was picking up on that. And the nodes again. So his North Node. So the North Node of the moment was in Gemini at 7 degrees, making the South Node at 7 Sag, hanging around his nodes at 3 Gemini Sag. So his North Node's in Sag. So there's a kind of almost like a sense of fatedness about this. And as well, Mars was at 29 degrees and 45 minutes of Leo at the time, which is opposite his Mars. So the Mars opposition as well is like, having that kind of intention, seeing the end goal, seeing ahead, seeing the future, and kind of incorporating the other person, having Mars opposite Mars. You could see that as an argument, a tug of war, but it could also be about wanting to put your energy, including other people in your game plan, because, one of those Marses is going to be the more lunar or Venusian type of expression, whereas the other Mars is going to be like the Mars, the self-orientated one. So interesting that transiting Mars was opposing. So he was having his Mars opposition at the time as well. So fascinating when you look at people's charts, isn't it? And that will have been creating a T-square which apexed at her Venus. In fact, it will make a grand cross, which is also inclusive of... so it was his Venus as well. So that Mars opposition was, that Mars is literally creating tension between his Mars, his Venus, and then her Saturn as well. How interesting. I could go on about this, as you can probably tell, for a very long time, so I'm going to wrap it up here. I strongly urge you to have a look at their charts. One more thing I've got to touch on. The moon was in Aries that day as well, so it will have been moving across his stellium, helping him to be more reflective, thinking about the women in his life. Now he's not just got Lily, he's got her daughters. Just really fascinating, isn't it, to look at this stuff. So I'm sure you'll see some of the stuff, some notable things yourself, things that are worth, exploring in greater detail. Hopefully this has been fun for you to kind of look at and enjoy, from a removed perspective. Wow, much longer episode than I was planning. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to click on my links that I've included. One single link to rule them all. Go and check out my links. Join the mailing list if you haven't. submit your chart so that I can analyse it on the podcast at some point. Sign up to the YouTube channel, guys, and you can be entered if you subscribe. You can be entered into the prize draw at the end of the year for a Magic of I astrological almanac. I think that's all I've got to say right now. Take care, you lot, and I'll speak to you next time. Bye.